Finally. That's the Nothing Personal Word of the Day. It is Thursday, June 6th, the day that we have had circled on our calendar. It's game one of the NBA Finals. For those of you who thought the season had ended because you can't remember the last time basketball was played, I hear you. This has been a long week, even longer for people inside the sport, longer for the players, longer for the staff, longer for the fans, longer for everybody. There's nothing you can do about it. You have to set the schedule in advance. You cannot start the finals early, like you can't start the Stanley Cup early, which starts only on Saturday. But this break has given us a little sample of what it will be like no more than 2 weeks from now when basketball and hockey come to an end. So we can finally do our preview for the Celtics Mavs. We can finally tell you that either way at the end of this series, there will be a NBA champion and it will be a significant moment. Now, most championships are. Not all, but this one is going to be. If Boston wins, you're talking about a coach who is the youngest head coach to be in the finals since another guy who coached the same team, Bill Russell, in 1969. 35 years old, making a memory of Udoka. Remember when he was Ema Udoka out of Boston? All of the issues he had, they got rid of him. He ended up getting another head coaching job. Meanwhile, Mazzulla takes over, moved from the back row to the front row, totally too young, overmatched. Everyone, all of the people in the media critiquing him, saying there's no way he's going to make it. Let him go. Celtics are underperforming. Here he is in the NBA Finals. And here the Celtics are, a team that's put together with a player, Jayson Tatum, who, in order to be considered one of the top players in the league, he needs this ring. And I've been all over the place, and it's caused me this morning, Coca, was a 3:30 a.m. issue for me. My eyes popped open because I was still reeling from the Juan Soto mistake I made, that you can't be a top 100 player if you don't have a ring. And so, of course, I started thinking about basketball and all the players who don't have rings, from Barkley to my favorite Ewing. And those players are both considered top 50, then top 75. But there's something about winning the championship that enables you to be in a different conversation. And we try to say that it doesn't matter when our favorite player doesn't have one, but when our favorite player does have one, then we get into the ring conversation. And it is hard to argue that Jayson Tatum, who to me feels like he's in his 30s because he's been in the league so long, is in his low 20s. But having him get his first ring, that will catapult him. And I don't think there's an argument against it. The Celtics have their second part of the tandem in Jaylen Brown, who is incredibly overpaid, half the people say. Remember the huge extension he signed? We have to stop viewing basketball players in the lens of overpaid and that the numbers are so astronomical. We have to start thinking about them the way we think of movie stars or corporate CEOs. The numbers are so out of this world that you cannot understand what they are, but they're going to keep going up. Remember, we had that conversation where part of the new revenue, broadcast revenue that the NBA is going to get, and we're going to hear from Adam Silver about that today. Can't wait to cover that tomorrow. He'll have his State of the Finals address before game one. I'm sure we'll have some fun with it. But with the salary cap going up, with league revenue going up, max extensions are going up, and we are moments away from a 70, 80, $90 million a year player. So I think we just have to get used to that. But Jaylen Brown's contract, to me, still looks outrageous. So people are viewing the finals as Tatum and Brown versus Luka and Kyrie. And Dallas, what a story that would be. First time, new time owner winning a title a few months after buying the team. Watching the Larry O'Brien trophy given to Patrick Dumont and not to Mark Cuban. That will be a chef's kiss. It makes me root for Dallas just to see that. Kyrie Irving, the reclamation project, who has had nothing but positive vibes surrounding him. A perfect match for Miriam Adelson and her son-in-law, has been a terrific teammate for Luka. It would get Luka a ring, get a wait to see correct that he would get a ring before Trae Young. It would be Dallas's first ring since 2011. But Jason Kidd, since we're talking about coaches, Jason Kidd will join what I think is maybe the coolest exclusive list in basketball. Only 7 people have won a ring as a coach and a player of the same franchise. And Jason Kidd would join that list. There is no way that anybody listening to this show live, as a matter of fact, without Googling it, if you can come up with it right now, no Google, who the 7 guys are, Coca will be the arbiter of it. I'll send you something cool. There it is. Time's up. Did you come up with Tommy Heinsohn of the Celtics? There's no way you came up with Billy Cunningham of the Sixers, I would assume. I mean, maybe Casey Jones and Bill Russell, maybe. But Buddy Jeanette? Come on. Think about that list. Jason Kidd was on the Mavericks when they last won it. So I'm thinking about this series and thinking about Tatum Brown versus Luka Kyrie. And I'm going to assume that they will cancel each other out. So then you have to look deeper into the rosters to figure out who's favored and why. Why would the Celtics be minus 210 in this series? Is it because people view Tatum and Brown as greater than Luka and Kyrie? I think not. I think a 2-on-2 tournament. Hold on, let me see if I can get Skipper on the phone. Maybe he's investing in that without telling anybody. A 2-on-2, let's assume a tie. But can we talk about Derek White or Porzingis is back playing? I guess we could talk about PJ Washington, a great addition at the deadline. But it's really hard to look at the supporting cast of Dallas and say that it even holds a candle to the extra players. We didn't even mention Drew Holiday. Drew Holiday. I love Milwaukee. That Drew Holiday trade, it crushed Milwaukee. Getting Damian Lillard. They made that trade with the Blazers. I can't figure out where Heat people are on this. I assume you're rooting against Milwaukee, but then are you rooting for Boston because it really shoves it up Milwaukee's tuchus if Boston wins a title with the player that Milwaukee traded because they got Lillard? I mean, that's some kind of Machiavellian stuff, but I would assume people are doing that for Miami. Let me know, 22% of you, Floridians. I think that number's too high now. Let me know. So I have the supporting cast way, way better for Boston, and that's why they absolutely have the advantage. Either way, the storylines are good, and either way, it has to be a long series, though I believe that the betting favorite is for the Celtics to win in 5. I am predicting that the Celtics win in 6. I believe that that is the smartest money. I think the last I looked, Coca, you can get maybe plus 410 if you get it exactly right, Celtics in 6. But remember, to win in 6, the Mavs are going to have to win 2 games. Tonight is game 1. And I want to get into the nothing personal pick of the day. The nothing personal pick of the day is presented by DraftKings. Stay tuned because you'll hear more about DraftKings and all it has to offer throughout the show. DraftKings, the crown is yours. Our first pick of the day involves game 1 of the NBA Finals. We have the Celtics winning the series in 6 games, and we have the Celtics starting the series by winning game 1. They are favored by 6.5 points. Watching the Celtics throughout the playoffs, we could have a conversation about rust. We could have a conversation about game 1s where the Celtics have crushed and then they've had some issues in game 2. Or we could just say that the Celtics are going to be the better team in each of the games, but the Mavericks will find a way through hot shooting and cold 3-point shooting by the Celtics to steal 2 games. So game 1, Celtics minus 6.5 over the Mavs. Our second pick of the day presented by DraftKings. Let's go to the Diamond and spend a couple of minutes. It was must-see TV last night with Paul Skeens throwing 169 miles an hour, facing Shohei Ohtani. Struck him out on 3 straight pitches. Later in the game, next at bat, Ohtani took him deep. Paul Skeens and the Pirates won that game Skeens ERA is 3, right around where my wait to see said he'd finish. It's really hard to have an ERA below 3, which should give you some indication for those pitchers who do how good they've been this deep into the season. The talk around the Dodgers has been around Mookie Betts and Gavin Lux and how the position change has impacted Mookie Betts. If you take a look at his struggles recently, he was hot to start the season, but we're already here in the beginning of June, and he has cooled off in a way that makes him look ordinary. The front office has to sit down. Andrew Friedman is pulling his 4 hairs out, trying to decide, what have we done here? Are we sacrificing MVP Mookie in order to put him in this premium defensive position? And do we need to move him out of that in order to get his bat going again? And it's a very hard decision for a front office to make because you value that positions up the middle, catcher, second, short, and center field. You value them greatly. You value Mookie at the top of your lineup. When we would sit down and talk about defense and offense, we always valued the offense more, but we said pitching and defense will win us rings. But assuming that someone is equal at shortstop, if we could, Mookie as a defender is a plus defender, and we could put in Rojas instead or Lux instead, whoever you choose to put in there if Lux's arm is feeling better, all things being equal, you don't want to sacrifice your offense. And so for me, moving Mookie Betts out of shortstop is something the Dodgers should be doing. They already are in a league, the National League, where they are not the best team. They may be the second best team now that Acuna is hurt, but they are certainly knowledgeable, at least if they're not delusional, that the Phillies are a better team. So as the Dodgers are figuring out what to do, one of the things they're going to deal with is Mookie Betts. And they're going to deal with that prior to the deadline because you want to get that position change happening. And I think we have a wait to see about that, about Mookie Betts and how many games he will play at shortstop. And I really like my chances of the under, which is what I'd said it would be. The Dodgers have a pitcher going tonight, Walker Buehler, coming off Tommy John. He has been up and down, which is what you expect. We talk about this when pitchers come back from Tommy John and what to expect of them, what their workload is, because there is no doubt you will have inconsistency. You'll have moments of brilliance and then moments where it just feels like their arm, the mechanics, the ball coming out of their hand, it just doesn't look right. And a little secret is that when we're watching the game with your GM or you're watching as an executive, you know really fast. But there's nothing you can do. We once talked to our manager, Coca. I once asked a manager, this was Edwin Rodriguez, actually, one of our managers with the Marlins. If we know, I had a whole thing with pitchers who gave up first inning runs. I would want them to pitch an inning in the bullpen, somehow find a way, because these pitchers often give up runs early and you want to find a way to make it feel mid by the time they start a game. But I also wanted to know, we'd have a pitching coach after a game or a manager after a game who would say, yeah, he didn't have it in the bullpen. We knew he didn't have it. Or the GM would say, we knew first batter, something was going, it wasn't coming out right. And my question always was, why didn't we pull him? Why? And the answer always was, because we can't use our bullpen that way. So Buehler's going against the Pirates. The Dodgers coming off a loss. Nothing personal. Pick of the day presented by DraftKings. We are taking Walker Buehler and the Dodgers minus 185 over the Pirates, especially coming off the loss to Skeens that they had last night. The Dodgers got to start playing better, and it will start tonight. We talk about players playing better, and it's going to start. I'd like you to believe that we are these fancy people in our ivory towers, that we know so much about baseball and our sports as GM or president, and we're smarter than you and better than you and richer than you and more handsome than you. We are you. We sit around and talk about things the way you do. We just get paid to do it instead of paying someone else to do it. I'm not sullying every GM and every team president or every owner or every manager. I'm just saying we may watch the game differently after a while because we've watched so many games, or there's so many more of us, we can just talk amongst ourselves. But let me tell you, when we sign someone like Jordan Montgomery. We are guessing the way you are that he's going to perform for us. When we sign someone like Luis Severino, we are guessing that he's going to perform because we convince ourselves he's going to be who he was when he was good. He's not going to get hurt. Severino joined the Mets. Let me tell you, it's been an absolutely amazing signing for them. And I don't know if people are getting credit. They should be getting credit. At the end of the day, what Severino's done for the Mets is shown that once in a while you sign a guy that works, once in a while you sign a guy who doesn't work. Let's start with the guy who works, Severino. Last night, you saw what Severino did to the Nationals, I hope, if you were watching that game, because that was our pick of the day yesterday. Now, it wasn't the pick I acknowledge because of Severino. It was the pick because he pitched against the Nationals and Patrick Corbin. And you know very well that we go against Corbin every single time he pitches. And we are now 6-3 going against Corbin. We are up $1.22, having had that stretch where Corbin won 2 straight games. But what a gimme yesterday as the Mets crushed the Nationals to bring us to 77-86. And the Mets, I wanted to just spend 2 minutes, Coca, on this, if you don't mind. The Mets are in London. They landed already. If you looked yesterday, the Phillies had an afternoon game. The Mets had an afternoon game, and they both went to London immediately. The way that works is you go right to the airport. You get on the charter plane. The flight to London is brutal because it's a 5-hour time difference, but it's only a 5-hour flight from New York. So you get there 10 hours after you leave. So often the commercial plane will be a 6 p.m. departure and a 6 a.m. arrival because they account for that's gate to gate. But when teams travel, there's no gate to gate. You take off immediately. There's no appearing 2 hours before. There's no check-in. There's no nothing. The game ends. You load on the bus 45 minutes later. You go right. It can even leave from LaGuardia. Does not need to leave from Kennedy the way other international flights do. And you head right to London and you land 10 hours later. So let's say they took off at 7 o'clock last night. They landed at 5 a.m. this morning and they've got an off day. But when you're in London, and we're going to preview that series tomorrow, you've got appearances that certain players have to do. There's going to be a workout at London Stadium that they're going to have to do with BP and infield. And it's exhausting. But the Mets were able to do it, and they were able to do it with a victory. So are the Phillies. A player who did not do very well yesterday. Let's talk about Jordan Montgomery. That's Jordan Montgomery being booed off the field. Oh, that's so good. The Arizona Diamondbacks booed him. He was so bad yesterday. He's been so bad all season. The excuse about I didn't have spring training, that is a Boras-built excuse that he gave to Blake Snell that Jordan Montgomery may borrow. Jordan Montgomery was a Boras client who ditched Boras because Montgomery had to settle for the 1+1 deal as well as Boras's other players. Anytime, although Bellinger, I think, got 3, but still way below what he wanted to get. Anytime I can do a little segment about a Boras player, old or new, I'm in. Let's talk about Jordan Montgomery. You love him as a Cardinal fan, love him as a Yankee fan, love him as a Ranger fan. I wonder why those teams weren't signing him. I guess the Rangers said, we don't know about our TV money. I guess the Yankees said, we got plenty of pitching, even with Garrett Cole. Even if Garrett Cole gets hurt, we don't need him. I guess the Cardinals said, even if Goldschmidt and Nolan don't hit very well and Mikolas has a 92 ERA, we are GTG. The Diamondbacks said, we made it so close. Our owner's getting old. Let's load up. Bring me Eduardo Rodriguez. Give me $80 million. What's the total number of innings pitched for Eduardo Rodriguez this year? Anyone want to guess? Well, 0. How about Jordan Montgomery? He went 2 innings last night, gave up 6 earned runs. He's now allowed 14 earned runs in his last 2 games. Jordan Montgomery has more earned runs this year than strikeouts. Just to give you an idea, that's really bad. But here's the interesting business part that Ken Kendrick, owner, Derek Hall, president, are dealing with. They'll call Hazen and they'll speak to the GM about this, but here's where my head is. Scott Boras negotiated a 1+1. The second year of Jordan Montgomery's deal is what's called a vesting option, which means if you do something, no matter how badly you do it, then you get blank. So for position players, we can do a vesting option on plate appearances, not batting average, not home runs, not WAR, slugging, OPS, just going up. For pitchers, you can do it based on innings pitched. Games finished. I love games finished because we only want to let people finish games who are good when we're winning. Other than that, see you later. You're not going to finish a game. It's why you rarely see closers come in. We pretend that we don't put closers in when we're losing because, oh, you don't want to waste the closers. No, we don't want to give them another game's finished when it's not a save situation or a tie at home. But Jordan Montgomery has a vesting option. If he starts 10 games this year, then next year's contract becomes guaranteed at $20 million for 10 starts. If he starts 18, that's another $2.5 million guaranteed. His contract goes to 22.5. If he starts 23 games, so 5 starts after that, he gets 25 million total. So the biggest vesting option part is right now. He has started 9 games. The minute he is named as a starter in 4 days, he is at $20 million. After that, you're only risking $5 more million for 13 extra starts. If I'm the owner of the Diamondbacks, I'm looking at my team. I'm looking at Jordan Montgomery, and I'm saying we've got some natural raises coming up. Our young players are getting a year older. $20 million for Jordan Montgomery? Guess what I'm doing? Bye-bye. I am designating Jordan Montgomery for assignment. It's not going to make me popular in the clubhouse. It's not going to make me popular amongst the fans, although, given what we heard from the fans last night, how are they going to complain? It is a prudent financial decision to reallocate the money because this is not the year for the Diamondbacks, no matter what they say. And they could, because of how it happened last year when they got hot at the right time. I suppose that Kendrick and Derek Hall could be looking at each other and saying, oh, no, we love our position. All we got to do is just get hot again. It doesn't happen 2 years in a row, and they know that. They've been around. Arizona's 29-33. They are 8.5 games behind the Dodgers. Not happening. In the wild card, it's different. They're only 1.5 out. Why? Because the National League blows chunks. Total number of teams over 500 in the National League. What's your guess? Total over 500. Phillies, Dodgers, Brewers, Braves. Phillies, Dodgers, Brewers, Braves. There's got to be more than that. There can't be 4 teams above 500 on the 6th day of June. Yeah, that's it. Cubs, of course, are 500, but that's not above 500. So Arizona, while they're a game and a half back, here's what we look at. They are behind Pittsburgh, San Francisco, and St. Louis. They're tied with Cincinnati. They are a game and a half up on Washington. They're 2 games up on the Mets. You can ignore the Mets and Washington are both sellers. Colorado, Miami, not even in the conversation. So, do they have the guts to do this? Will it withstand a grievance? They're going to call Major League Baseball, the baseball ops department. They will say, hey, you can release him, no problem. You can designate him because we can point to his performance and say there's no way that we would allow him to continue to pitch for us. You're not allowed to use a vesting option as a penalty where you're approaching a vesting option, but we would always find excuses. So if we had a guy with a vesting option with another 20 at-bats, we may stop playing him if we don't want that option to vest. And we would have to hope that player was not playing well, because if he is playing well, you've got to keep him going. If Jordan Montgomery were lights out and you all of a sudden released him right now or made him a bullpen pitcher, that would not fly. But given the way Jordan Montgomery is, I either move him to the bullpen or fully designate him, and I am not going to lose a grievance to Major League Baseball Players Association. So we ought to really look to that. And this is going to be another example of owners this offseason looking at Boras and looking at his clients and saying, we're really not blinking this time, because all of the wares that you are peddling upon us, you are overselling and under-delivering. And God knows you're over-promising. I don't wish ill on Jordan Montgomery. I'm just telling you what's going to happen. All right, when we come back, it's Thursday. Get to review one of my top 100 movies, and then we're going to talk gambling. So get ready. And then we're going to do a geography lesson. We don't do geography lessons much. Geography was never my strong suit at Horace Mann. But I do know one thing. Kansas City is both in Kansas and Missouri, two different cities, but they both want the same thing. We'll talk about that after the break. Welcome back to Nothing Personal. It's David Sampson coming at you every day live at 8 a.m. on the Nothing Personal with David Sampson YouTube channel. I don't know how to game the system to get subscribers who actually aren't here, so I appreciate all of you who do subscribe, because it means all of you are watching. But tell your friends about it. Click subscribe. We don't get very many people from third world countries, but I guess a lot of other shows do. Maybe I have to try to figure that out. Thank you for your loyalty. We will keep going. Thursday, it means we're reviewing A League of Their Own. That is number something on my top 100. Go to davidsampsonpodcast.com, and there is a link to my top 100 movie list, which I change once a year. There's a link to all of the wait to sees, all of the Nothing Personal pick of the days. We have full accountability of everything that we do, and you can get it on davidsampsonpodcast.com. Number 54, League of Their Own. People ask me, because I was in baseball for so long, what's your favorite baseball movie? And I don't hesitate. It's because of family trauma and drama, but it's certainly Field of Dreams. I can't tell you how many times I just would want my son to say, hey, Dad, want to have a catch? I can't tell you how often I wish I had said that to my dad more. So that movie will always, always be my number one. But League of Their Own has a special place in my heart. If you saw that movie and didn't cry at the end when they are at the Hall of Fame in Cooperstown and they are cutting the ribbon and they're all older and Dottie's there and they're going through the exhibits, if you did not tear up, then you don't cry at movies. If you don't think that Gina Davis dropped the ball on purpose, then you don't get movies. If you don't think that John Lovitz's line, you see, it's the train moves and not the station. If you didn't laugh out loud at that line, then you don't have a sense of humor. If you don't think that it's one of the top 10 performances by Tom Hanks in his career that has spawned maybe the most famous line, can I say that? I don't want to do hyperbole. But is it possible that There's No Crying in Baseball is one of the most, it's got to be a top 10 most famous line in the history of cinema? I think. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. Maybe I need to add them for a top 5, but I'm back. There's that. Or no, is it, what is Arnold Schwarzenegger said? I'll be back. And then Here's Johnny from The Shining. That could be a good one. But There's No Crying in Baseball. That's top 10 for sure. Don't yell at me because I spoil League of Their Own, folks. If you haven't watched it, what are you doing? I'm telling you to watch it again. Good. All right, Coco, will you show that spreadsheet developed by one of our great loyal audience members so we can see what movie I get to watch this week, which makes me super excited. There's a button you press and press away. We are going to review God, the world is weird. Number 67, Jurassic Park. I guess I'll watch it again, but I just watched Jurassic Park. What is today? Thursday, obviously. It was this weekend, and it was one of my middle of the night issues where I was watching a movie. And when I watch Jurassic Park, I end up singing the theme song and humming it. Na 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 na. I'm doing that for like a week. So I was just doing that today while getting ready for the show, and here it is. What a weird world we live in. Weird, weird world. I'm going to talk about gambling again. Not just because we're sponsored by DraftKings, but because players are getting suspended. We've covered it, been asked to cover it on a lot of different shows. I want to make sure that you come to Nothing Personal for in-depth analysis of the relationship between gambling companies and leagues, between players and gambling, what is true, what is not true, and why I have maintained one major through point in this conversation from the beginning. And that is that the commissioner's job, in addition to increasing the value of every team, is to make sure that revenue continues to come in to the league. And in order for revenue to come into the league, it requires buyers, sponsors, paying fans to believe that it's not scripted, to believe that it's not fixed, to believe that it is fair play. It's why the injury report in the NFL is such a big deal. It's why baseball wants to stop with phantom ILs and they want to announce starting pitchers and lineups all at the same time so nobody has an advantage. Everyone is interested in you, the consumer, who's consuming the sport and interacting with gambling companies, that you believe you're watching something that's fair. When players gamble, it's the same thing as when you or I are short of money. What do? We work twice as hard to make more money. And if we can't make more money working, we start getting desperate. It's why people commit crimes who are addicted to pills or powder. It's why people do things that they otherwise wouldn't do because of money. It's the whole basis of our show. What do you do if you are losing money gambling? And I don't mean the $99, but I sure as heck fire mean the 40 million. And it's all relative. Some people, if you lose $99, it would cause you to be desperate. It's why we say call 1-800-GAMBLER. Make sure you get help before you end up losing your freedom. Jontay Porter is a player who is banned for life in the NBA. Remember Porter as the person who had prop bets about his performance on the court, and all of a sudden the unders kept hitting because he would duck out of games after playing for a couple minutes and be totally ineffective. And I told you, this is a problem. If it ever comes out why Porter was doing it, I'll speculate and tell you why I think he was doing it. And I said, because what if he were in debt? And what if this were paying back debt? Or what if he just wanted extra money to put an addition on his house? Whatever the reason is, if he needed money and went to someone and said, I'm not taking it off my credit card, I can't borrow it from a bank. How about you? You give me 500 grand and I'll give you 3 points, 1 rebound, and no assist. No problem. It's a nightmare. It's the same nightmare as if he's down 500 grand to a bookie, illegal or legal, and decides that he's going to find a way to throw a game. Well, Bondi came up with a tweet yesterday saying that Jontay Porter allegedly had to throw games because he was in significant gambling debt. Federal prosecutors allege that Porter had racked up large gambling debts in the beginning of the year to co-conspirators and was encouraged to clear those debts by throwing games in order for certain bets to hit. If Adam Silver is not asked about this at today's media availability, then it will be malpractice by the journalists. The NBA will certainly ask the journalists not to ask about it. Adam Silver wants no negativity for a pre-NBA Finals press conference. Happy to talk about the broadcast deals. Happy to talk about the amazing revenue that's coming in. Happy to talk about the partnerships, the quality of play on the field, on the court. talk about having to suspend a player for life for throwing games because he owed money. It truly is the number one malrev that any of us would have to deal with. So what do? You punish people, you punish them hard, swiftly, quickly, and you pray to God that deterrence matters. The problem is there is one thing that's been proven in criminal justice and in the world of punishments and figuring out, does a punishment fit the crime? What do we do to increase or help our system where we lead the world in incarceration? When there is money at stake, nobody acts rationally. That's just the reality. There's people who say, oh, when there's passion at stake, you lose your ability to be rational. Crimes of passion. That doesn't even hold a candle to the crime of desperation caused by financial ruin. Meanwhile, if you're going to talk to Adam Silver, what about talking about Long Fee Pham? You may just know him as Bruce. Did you see what happened to him? You may not know that name, but you should, because that's the guy that Porter dealt with. That's the unsavory character he was associated with. That's the guy who just got arrested at Kennedy trying to flee the country with a bunch of cash. I would think with the cash you get illegally, don't you want to try to find a different name to travel under? Can't you find someone with a different passport, put your face on it? Not saying I'm out doing that to any people in Homeland Security watching the show, and I happen to know some who do because you reach out to me. I would never do that, obviously, but I think people may do that. Apparently, Bruce said, nah, I'm good. And JFK, they said, I don't think you should be leaving the country. So they arrested him. It's pretty good, isn't it? It's actually a great Tom Hanks movie about that. Speaking of Tom Hanks, I wouldn't put it in my top 10, though, Matt. Catch Me If You Can. Well, Bruce said, catch me if you can, and he's been caught. You know, the more I think about it, Adam Silver is going to have to address this. We'll find out. We'll deal with it tomorrow. How many of you have been to Kansas City? You should go. Kansas City, Missouri is outstanding. Kansas City, Kansas is less known, but still good. Very nice. A lot of the players, Sarah told me before the show, who play for Kansas City live in Kansas City, Kansas. Been to Royals games, Chiefs games. There's that whole stadium area. Been to the Negro League Museum. Outstanding. Something came out yesterday that made me smile as a former team president. Competition to give me money. Love it. When we were building the stadium in Miami, County of Miami-Dade, City of Miami, we went to Broward, which is where Fort Lauderdale is. We went to Palm Beach, which is where Palm Beach is. And we said to the people, hi, we're the Marlins, and we're happy to be the Palm Beach Marlins. We're happy to be the Broward Marlins. Do you have any money to put into a new stadium? We went to the Miccosukee tribe. Hi, would you like to build a stadium on 441? We're happy to be called the Miccosukee Marlins. We just want money because we'd rather spend it on players or increase the value of our team. Zero competition. Broward, no. Palm Beach, no, because they already had spring training, didn't want to allocate to a major league team. Miami, yes, we're in. We'll change the name from Florida to Miami. Did we have the most leverage? Absolutely not, which is why you wear cowboy boots and a cowboy hat and pretend you're moving to San Antonio. The Hunt family in Kansas City doesn't have to do squat. They can take an 18-minute car ride for their leverage. That's shorter than pro player to downtown Las Olas, downtown Lauderdale. You see, there's a Kansas City, Missouri, and they voted against giving money to the Chiefs for renovations of Arrowhead. The Chiefs were with the Royals. That plan, done. So the Chiefs are now on their own. And wouldn't you know it, the governor of Kansas came out and said, you know, I got to tell you, we want the Chiefs. So the Chiefs could be moving from Kansas City, Missouri, where Arrowhead is, to Kansas City, Kansas. You don't even need a moving truck. You can fill up your Tesla and just make 20 round trips. That's how close it is. But the quote from the legislators, the politicians, blew my mind. So in Kansas, they have a House Speaker. His name is Dan Hawkins. They have a Senate President. His name is Ty Masterson. You need state money to do these deals. And the state was not involved in the Arrowhead deal, in the Arrowhead renovation, different state. But to build a new stadium in Kansas, you don't need the Missouri people at all, or the politicians. You need Kansas politicians. And to get state money, you need the governor, you need the Senate, you need the House. So the Speaker of the House and the Senate President, if you can get both of them to agree on the shape of a table to negotiate something, you have done very well. They released a joint statement yesterday. Blew my mind. The rich tradition and history of the Chiefs are beloved across the entire Kansas City region and throughout Kansas. The potential to establish a home for the Chiefs family here on the Kansas side of the state line is an opportunity that deserves a thorough conversation. Well, what does that exactly mean? Well, they continued, and they sent a letter to the Hunt family, Clark Hunt, the CEO of the Chiefs. Can you imagine? We never got a letter from any politician saying, oh, please, we want to give you money. It's like a dream. It's like you open that envelope and you just look at it and smile. They released part of the letter they wrote. With our strategic location, a vibrant fan base, robust economic incentives, and the exceptional tools at our disposal, we are poised to make the Kansas City Chiefs even stronger. I mean, Yahtzee. You know when you're playing Yahtzee and there's 6 dice? I think there's 6 dice, 5 dice, maybe 5 dice, and you roll it and you can see 3 6s and there's 2 dice that are still rolling around, and then you get another 6 and you're like, this can't be. Am I going to get it? And then boom, you get it on the first roll, all 6s. You're like, oh my God, Yahtzee. It's amazing. You're telling me that the politicians in Kansas want you to believe that they've got a vibrant fan base? What are you talking about? It's the same exact fan base that they currently have. What, you're going to access new people who didn't want to cross state lines? True. The small percentage of felons or parolees may not. But other than that, I'm pretty sure everybody was willing to go to Arrowhead. But let's talk about the strategic location near players' homes. Perfect. Let's talk about robust economic incentives. That is a dollar sign. I mean, if you're watching this on YouTube right now, take a look at this map. Look exactly where Kansas City is and where Arrowhead is. Look at that. It's a 22-minute drive as we sit here and do the show. Robust economic incentives. That just means they're willing to put in a ton of money into the deal, and now Missouri is competing with Kansas. You'd think Missouri would have learned its lesson. St. Louis Cardinals, when they were threatening Illinois, which is just over the bridge if you go to St. Louis, oh, the team could move to Illinois. Give me a break. The likelihood of the Chiefs not doing a deal in Missouri has now gone to 0 because Missouri just looked up and said, wait a minute, they could easily move to Kansas City, Kansas. And now these politicians are out here saying they've got robust economic incentives. Criminy, what are we going to do? I'll tell you what you're going to do. You're going to make an offer that doesn't involve a referendum. You're going to put a ton of money in, and you're going to cut that deal swiftly. And so they will. Wait to see is when we tell you something's going to happen. I'll give you a wait to see. I promise you that we will 100% revisit it. The Chiefs will play in Kansas City. I'm just kidding. Missouri. That's the wait to see. I could totally win the wait to see by saying the Chiefs will stay in Kansas City. Oh, I meant Kansas. Oh, I meant Missouri. Nah, Chiefs are staying in Missouri. Book it. Official wait to see. I have a wait to see pending on JJ Redick, that he's going to be the next coach of the Lakers just yesterday. I think I have a wait to see that Redick's going to get paid under Lou and over Ham. That sounds like a country song. Well, we were going on the air today, and Woj, the basketball insider, said, actually, the Lakers have decided that Dan Hurley is their man. Dan Hurley, who's won back-to-back titles at UConn. You may have heard of him. Now, he's the person. He's the favorite. He's been the favorite. Everyone just reported that Redick was the favorite. Do you think that Redick, who went public on his own podcast, said, I'm not really going to talk about this till after the finals? Do you know that people have the capacity to do two things at once? I don't know if you know this. You do have to focus and do your work to prepare to be a good broadcaster. There's no doubt about it. It would be like me saying, because I do nothing personal, I have no time to do anything else. Total hogwash. There's plenty of time to negotiate. You hear that, Jerry? Plenty of time to negotiate. JJ Redick could be negotiating with the Lakers right now. They could be trying to figure out how long the deal is. The Lakers could be leaking out through Woj, shocking that would happen. Here's the plan. You want to get more than Ty Lue and make Sampson look wrong? Forget it. We'll go with Danny Hurley. You think that LeBron and Rich Paul called up Jeannie and Rob and said, hey, I just read a rumor about JJ Redick. That can't be true. I want Dan Hurley. Or do you think that he called up and said, I wanted JJ, but we just recorded a terrible episode and he's really not my guy. Let's put our focus somewhere else. What do you think of Dan Hurley? All right, let's leak that out. The whole thing just smells badly to me. The timing of all of this, you're leaking this on the eve of game one, where Redick is calling his first NBA Finals, that now it's not Redick, almost begging them to address it, which they won't be able to address because Disney will say we're not addressing what we're doing and what you're doing with your life and your job after this series. You are the analyst. Analyze. But it's always so forced and so silly. If you're Mike Breen, how do you not talk about this? If you are the pregame show, you think that Stephen A. Smith is not going to discuss this? How can you with any straight face? Why not just say that you can't discuss it? We were told not to discuss it. Disney has to be despondent. They keep hiring analysts who become coaches. The only reason JJ Redick is there is because Doc Rivers became the head coach of the Bucks. I would imagine that he could. That would be amazing if Redick goes to coach the Lakers. The Bucks fired Doc because Doc was a nightmare, but he did the power thing, so he's not going to be fired. And then Doc goes back and sits down. Meanwhile, Mark Jackson and Jeff Van Gundy are saying, really? What about me? Though if they have good agents, I assure you they're speaking to NBC and Amazon right now. And then we'll really test the Jeff Van Gundy wasn't wanted by Adam Silver theory, won't we? So I'm going to have to watch carefully now as this Laker head coaching carousel nightmare unfolds. I am not going back on my wait to see under any scenario. JJ Redick will be the next coach of the Lakers. Enjoy the game tonight. And on a side note, don't forget to tune in tomorrow. We will be live again at 8 a.m. We are going to get to talk about tonight's NBA Finals game, game one. We're going to get to deal with Adam Silver talking to the media and what he addressed and give you what's going on with what he said behind the scenes, in front of the scenes. And I'm also going to get to tell you a story, which truly excites me, about how when you're negotiating a ballpark, you actually can use different levers to get more public money, and how MLB conspires with you to use those levers, much like all the other leagues do too. NFL, NBA, everybody's playing from the same playbook. It's fascinating. We'll be back tomorrow at 8 a.m. for all of it because it's just business. This is nothing personal.